Talu Cave Tragedy. On October 13, 2007, 9 people went to explore Talu Cave in Khao Sok National Park, Thailand. The group included 6 tourists and 2 Thai guides. One of the tourists was Helena, a 17-year-old girl from the UK. Her boyfriend John came with her. There was also a 10-year-old boy from Germany and 2 teenage girls from Switzerland with their parents. The group entered the cave shortly after noon. The weather looked fine, and there was no rain at the entrance. But it had rained earlier in the mountains, far upstream. Talu Cave is part of a large water system, and rain from far away can cause flash floods inside the cave. Inside, they walked through a shallow stream. The water started rising, but the group kept going. The guides didn't think the situation was dangerous yet. Then, a sudden flash flood hit the cave. Water rushed in fast. It filled up the tunnel within minutes. The guides shouted for everyone to climb to higher ground. Some people managed to get up onto a slope, but others were caught in the current. There was no space to escape. The tunnel filled with water, and there was no air left in some parts of the cave. 8 of the 9 people inside drowned. Only Helena survived. She climbed onto a small ledge above the water, stayed there alone for over 16 hours. She was finally rescued by search teams the next day. The bodies of the other tourists, both Thai guides, were found dead, including the 10-year-old boy from Germany. After the tragedy, the Park Service closed Talu Cave. They created a seasonal rule. From June to November, the cave would be off-limits because of flooding risk. Warning signs were added, and tour operators were told not to lead trips during the rainy season. For more than a decade, the rule was followed. But later, some guides started leading tours again during rainy months, especially if the weather looked fine near the entrance. Then, on August 6, 2024, it happened again. A group of 22 tourists and 2 Thai guides entered the cave. It had rained the night before, but the skies were clear that day. The group started their tour in the afternoon. At around 5 p.m., they were near the exit when a flash flood hit. Water from the mountains rushed into the cave and trapped the group inside. Thai rescue teams were sent quickly. They saved all the tourists and one of the guides, but the second guide, a 37-year-old man, was swept away by the current while helping others. His body was found hours later. Schroeder's Pants Cave Incident. On February 13, 1965, 3 friends went caving near the small town of Dolgeville, New York. Their goal was to explore a cave known as Schroeder's Pants Cave, a narrow and dangerous cave in the foothills of the Adirondacks. The group included 23-year-old James Mitchell, a chemist from Massachusetts, Charles Bennett, a Harvard graduate student, and Hetty Miller, a nurse. Before entering the cave, they stopped by the home of George Lyon, one of the men who had discovered the cave in 1947. George wasn't home, so no one warned them about the recent snowmelt. Freezing water was now flowing through the cave. Despite the danger, the 3 friends entered. They squeezed through tight spots like Lemon Squeeze, Z-Bend, and Gun Barrel. After crawling for some time, they reached a vertical shaft about 80 feet deep. James wanted to go deeper. He put on his harness and clipped into the safety rope. He slowly lowered himself into the shaft, but about halfway down, something went wrong. A freezing waterfall, nearly 20 degrees Fahrenheit, was pouring straight onto James's head. Rescue reports estimated that about 10 gallons, 38 liters, of freezing water were landing on his head every minute. Then, his rope got stuck and trapped his arm. He was unable to make progress in either direction. James was now hanging in the shaft with freezing water crashing down on him. Even though he was trapped, James stayed calm. He told his friends he would be okay. Charles and Hetty were only 10 feet above him. For 45 minutes, they tried pulling him up, but they couldn't fight against the water. Charles knew they needed help. He exited the cave to find rescuers. The National Capital Grotto Rescue Squad, a newly formed cave rescue team, flew in from Washington, D.C. on Air Force 2. When the rescuers reached James, he was no longer moving. The cold had taken his life. For the next 3 days, rescuers tried to widen the passage to recover the body. But then part of the shaft collapsed. Rocks and debris started falling, and it became too dangerous to continue. With James's body still hanging inside, the decision was made to seal the cave. Explosives were used to close the entrance. Large rocks were placed over it, and a memorial stone was set up outside. In 2006, Christian Lyon, the grandson of George Lyon, decided to go back. He believed James deserved a proper burial. Christian and a team of expert cave explorer reopened the cave. He descended the same shaft and found James's bones at 75 feet. After 41 years, James Mitchell was finally brought back to the surface and laid to rest. Megawell Cave Incident. On January 13, 1991, Three cave explorers went to explore Megawell Cave in Jackson County, Alabama. John Mosley, a 36-year-old cave explorer with 10 years of experience, Linda O'Donnell, a newcomer, and Charles Daffinger, age 26. He was eager to prove himself on a big drop. Their goal was the cave's famous 310-foot pit. Heavy rain had fallen 3 times that week, so a stream now poured into the entrance. John brought a 600-foot rope he had bought secondhand from Polish cavers in Mexico. They set it up at the entrance. The rope had to go over a sharp rock ledge 20 feet down. That ledge already had deep grooves from earlier ropes rubbing against it. John descended first, checking the rigging as he went. Linda followed slowly. Finally, Charles clipped in and slid over the edge. By 2 p.m., all three stood in the huge chamber at the bottom. Water roared off the walls. After about 45 minutes, Linda was shivering. John said it was time to go. He climbed first and reached the surface safely. Linda climbed next, tired and cold. When she crawled out, John sent her to the car to warm up. Charles started up last. John waited at the top. 20 minutes passed, no movement. John called down, nothing. He pulled the rope. It felt light. John pulled the rope up and saw it was broken. The rope had snapped. Somewhere in the 310-foot shaft, Charles had fallen. Panic hit. John ran to the car and told Linda. They flagged a passing driver and asked him to call for help. Back at the cave, John rigged a fresh line and dropped into the darkness. At the bottom, he found Charles. The helmet was shattered. The fall had been fatal. John wrapped the body in the sleeping bag and climbed out to meet rescuers. Firefighters and rescuers worked through the night. At 7 a.m. the next day, they raised Charles' lifeless body to the surface. Sotano Cave tragedy. On July 10, 2005, 5 friends went camping in San Luis Potosí, Mexico. Their plan wasn't to explore or to go caving properly. They wanted to throw a party underground. Miguel was the leader of the group. The others were Carlos, Alejandro, Ali, and Daniel. None of them had ever been in a cave before. They brought no helmets, no ropes, and no proper flashlights. What they did bring was beer, tequila, and a speaker. That afternoon, the group entered Sotano Cave. Right away, they started drinking. As the sun went down, the party kept going. Music echoed through the cave, and the 5 friends kept drinking late into the night. They went deeper into the cave than they should have. Along the way, they ignored warning signs that clearly said, "Do not enter." Around midnight, a heavy rainstorm began outside. Water started flowing into the cave. Miguel wanted to go back to their campsite to get more beer. His friends were worried. He had been drinking all night and was unsteady. Alejandro agreed to go with him to make sure he didn't get lost. Miguel walked ahead while Alejandro followed. The rain was pouring and the ground was slick with mud. Visibility was poor. In the darkness, Miguel lost track of the trail. He thought he saw solid ground ahead and stepped forward, but there was nothing there, just a deep vertical pit. Miguel fell. He screamed as he fell down the deep pit. He fell 79 feet, hit a slope, slid down, and fell another 62 feet. His body slammed into the rocks. Alejandro called out, but there was no answer. He panicked and ran back to tell the others. Carlos called the police. Ali and Daniel tried to find Miguel themselves. Rescue teams arrived at dawn. The rain had stopped. The group led rescuers to the spot where Miguel had fallen. Using ropes and helmets, the professionals descended safely. At the bottom, they found Miguel's body. He had died instantly from head trauma. They brought his body back to the surface. After the accident, authorities placed new warning signs. Underground parties were officially banned. Pierre Saint Martin Cave Tragedy. In August 1952, a group of international cave explorers began an expedition into the Pierre Saint Martin cave system in the Pyrenees, along the border of France and Spain. At the time, it was believed to be the deepest known cave in the world. One of the explorers was Marcel Lubens, a 33-year-old French engineer. He was an experienced caver and served as second in command of the expedition, which was led by Belgian professor Georges Cohn. The team spent 6 days deep underground. They explored narrow tunnels, set up rope ladders through the caves, and mapping vertical shafts. On August 27th, the team began their ascent back to the surface. Marcel was being lifted up one of the vertical shafts using a steel cable and winch. Then, disaster struck. Just as Marcel was being hauled up, the cable snapped. He fell 130 feet straight down onto a rocky slope. Marcel survived the fall but was badly injured. His back was broken, and he lost consciousness. He was now trapped 1,260 feet below the surface, deep inside the mountain. The team began a difficult rescue mission. Cavers climbed back down to reach Marcel. A doctor followed and treated him underground, using only headlamps and candlelight. In an incredible effort, they even performed a blood transfusion inside the cave. Over the next 2 days, rescuers tried to bring Marcel back up using a manual winch, but the shaft was narrow, and falling rocks made it extremely dangerous. Debris threatened both Marcel and the rescuers. After nearly 36 hours on the evening of August 29th, Marcel Lubens died in the cave. Black Cave Tragedy. In April 1995, Thomas Edward Benning decided to explore Black Cave in Arizona. He'd been there before and knew the terrain well. Confident and experienced, he entered alone, carrying nothing but an electric miner's lamp. No helmet, no backup gear, no shirt. The entrance was familiar and Thomas moved through the early passages with ease. But deep inside, something new caught his eye. A narrow side tunnel he had never noticed before. Curiosity got the better of him. He veered off the main route and entered the passage. He kept walking, crawling, twisting through the tight rock. But after some time, he realized he was lost. He turned back, but every direction looked the same. After an hour, he still couldn't find the main path. Then the worst happened. His lamp began to flicker. A few minutes later, it went out entirely, leaving him in complete darkness. With no flashlight, no sense of direction, and no help, Thomas was alone, miles underground. He reached for the only other light source he had, a small box of matches. He lit one. It cast a weak, flickering glow across the rock walls. He kept moving, match after match, but they burned out fast. Soon, he had nothing left. To avoid going in circles, he began leaving behind small personal items to mark his path. Hungry, thirsty, exhausted. He stumbled through the darkness until he came upon a fissure in the rock, a narrow vertical crack about 4 feet deep. It could be a way out, maybe even a connection to a bigger passage. With no other choice, he lowered himself in feet first. Then he stopped. His hips dropped below the narrowest point and he was stuck, completely wedged in. He couldn't go down. He couldn't pull himself up. He tried everything. Nothing worked. Trapped in silence, alone. Back home, his wife noticed he hadn't returned. Worried, she called the police. The search began, but Thomas hadn't told anyone where he was going. Authorities scoured multiple caves. Days passed. Finally, they found his car parked near Black Cave. Rescuers went in and searched the mapped areas. They found his glasses, his shirt, but they missed the hidden passage, the one he had followed. Incredibly, Thomas was still alive, but time was running out. His condition was deteriorating. Rescue teams eventually called off the search. He was officially declared missing. His wife refused to give up. She posted flyers, spoke to the media, but she wouldn't get answers for a long time. It wasn't until December 1996, over a year and a half later, while 3 cave explorers searching Black Cave found a narrow passage in unmapped section. Inside, they found Thomas's body. He had never made it out, and there, in the dark, trapped between the rock walls. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. And drop your ideas for future videos in the comments below. Your suggestion might be the topic of the next upload.